The chase was over. My enhanced chi sense, a perception interwoven into the very fabric of the planar world, registered the final, decisive shift. The Syndicate, guided by Arden's new cosmic mandate, had navigated every layer of my defenses. Their pursuit had ended, and the siege had begun. I felt them coalesce on the perimeter of my redoubt, not a chaotic mob of attackers, but a cohesive intelligence force, their chi signatures humming with a disciplined, analytical intent. My grim satisfaction was tinged with a heightened, almost electric paranoia. This was what I had been preparing for. Their arrival was silent, a presence felt rather than seen. There was no thunderous assault, no barrage of energetic pulses. Alyssin, the architect of integration, led the vanguard. Her chi signature was unlike the others I had perceived. It was not the sharp, aggressive hum of the weavers who had engaged my drone. It was serene, expansive, resonating with the complex intellectual beauty like a perfectly balanced equation. She was the head of Arden's decree, the embodiment of his mandate to understand, not destroy. And then she spoke. Her voice was not one of sound. It was a projection of pure, resonant chi frequencies. A series of modulated patterns that rippled through the planar medium with a perfect, undeniable harmony. It was a language of logic, of fundamental truths, designed to be universally understood by any sentient will attuned to the cosmic order. It was a language that, to them, was meant to be the first word in a long, inevitable conversation. Her intent, as my chi sense translated it, was not a threat, but an inquiry. A series of questions projected as a flawless harmonic probe. Who are you? Why do you exist? Why do you resist? I felt the pull of her frequencies, a subtle invitation, an energetic gesture of peace. The very logic of her first word was undeniably beautiful. It was an offer to establish a common energetic ground, to begin a dialogue on her terms. But I was Malachi. I was the architect of dissonance, and I was not a puzzle to be solved. Her frequencies were a Trojan horse. I recognized the elegance of the trap instantly. Her language of harmony was not just a means of communication, it was an attempt at reharmonization. Her every word was an attempt to subtly influence my own chi, to subtly dissolve my discordant nature, to slowly, inexorably reweave my unconsciousness back into the planar fabric. It was a form of assimilation, an energetic form of erasure, disguised as a peace offering. To respond in kind, to accept her invitation, would be to begin the process of my own extinction. I would not speak her language. I would not engage in her dialogue. Nadine, deploy the dissonance barrier, full power, I commanded, my voice low, precise whisper in the quiet sanctum of my redoubt. My fingers, imbued with the quiet power of integrated chi, traced patterns on the console. The barrier was a masterwork, the culmination of my work with Falky's old world tech and my new chi-based knowledge. It was not a simple shield of kinetic energy or force. It was a wall of pure, calculated dissonance. I took the raw, chaotic chi I had harvested from the scarred hard zones and, using my hybrid systems, bent it into a powerful, complex frequency. A frequency of pure tone, unyielding noise. A frequency of pure, unyielding noise that screamed defiance at Alyssin's perfect harmony. It was a chaotic static that actively resisted any attempt at harmonization. It was an energetic assertion of my independent existence. I watched through my sensors as my redoubt shimmered. They became a silent island of furious chaos. The air around it was no longer serene. It was a roiling tempest of discordant energy, a physical manifestation of my will, a declaration that I would not be integrated. Alyssin's team immediately reacted. I sensed their confusion, their surprise at the potency of the barrier. Their chi signatures shifted from intellectual curiosity to cautious alarm. They began to probe the wall, not with aggressive attacks, but with complex harmonic variations, gentle pulses designed to find a flaw, a weakness in the cacophony. Each attempt was met with unyielding, chaotic resistance. My barrier held firm, absorbing and twisting their elegant frequencies into a deafening, energetic scream. The episode became a tense, non-physical standoff. Outside, Alyssin and her team worked with a frighteningly calm persistence, trying to find a flaw in the wall I had created. Inside, I sat in the eye of the storm, observing every attempt, every probe, every subtle shift in their tactics. I was learning more about their capabilities and their limitations with every passing moment. I was testing them, and in doing so, testing the limits of my own creation. My paranoia was at an all-time high, but so was my exhilaration. I was holding back a God's directive. I was holding back the architects of harmony. Alyssin herself was at the forefront of the probes, her chi signature burning with a frustrated intensity. She had likely never encountered an entity that fundamentally rejected her language, her very nature. My wall of dissonance was an intellectual affront, a contradiction of everything she understood about the planar world. Through my chi sense, I perceived a realization. The anomaly was not just intelligent. Its will was profoundly unyielding. It was not a broken thing to be fixed. It was an entity that fundamentally rejected harmony. My barrier was a masterwork of both chi manipulation and old world technology, a fusion that challenged her understanding of what was possible. She was the architect of integration, and she had encountered something that was designed with meticulous precision to be impossible to integrate. The mute dialogue ended. Alyssin withdrew her probes. The tense silence standoff broke. I sensed her team reporting back to Arden. Their internal communications were filled with a new, more serious tone. The message was clear. First contact had failed. A new approach was needed. The siege continued, but the nature of the war had irrevocably changed. I was alone. I was left alone again, inside my redoubt. The silence more profound than before. The humming of my system was all that remained. I had held back the architects of harmony. My will had been tested and proven. I had made my first declaration, not with words, but with a wall of pure defiance. The feeling of triumph was immense, but it was quickly superseded by a cold, calculating resolve. Alyssin and her team had not been defeated. They had been given new data. They would return, and their next attempt would not be one of communication. It would be a tangible, physical manifestation of Arden's will. The non-physical war had concluded, and the physical one was now on the horizon. I turned back to my consoles, my mind already racing through the new strategies, new traps, new methods to generate a dissonance so profound that it could not be reharmonized. A chaos so precise that would destabilize the very foundation of Arden's theorem. My sanctuary was now a fortress, not just against the enemy, but against an ideology. The cosmic mandate had been issued, but it was a mandate I was bound to defy. My pursuit of immortality was no longer just about power. It was about achieving a state of being that was fundamentally outside Arden's system of observation and control. It was the only true victory.